Good night, everyone doing tonight. God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Simon J. Spears Divine. Here you get your little show news and a word on tonight. Now, okay, we finally have a new House on speaker. Finally got a new House Speaker. Congressman Mike Johnson, elected Speaker of the House. On October the 25th, Mike Johnson elected as the Speaker of the House, and he represents the Northwest in the Western region of Louisiana. So he right here from Louisiana. Prior to election to Congress 2016, the Speaker Johnson, and he was an attorney, and he served in the Louisiana State Legislature from 2015 to 2017. So before entering, election office, Mike Johnson was the new Republican Speaker of the United States House praised 18 centuries, value and told an audience that Americans should live by them when it came to majority in the region. So he was a Republican already. So he have experience in being a speaker. So we hope this one here is a good speaker, that he communicate with Democrat, and Republican, and get the job done. Cause we still have 2-3 major things just sitting waiting on the speaker, so we hope he is prepared and ready, to get this job done. So that's Mike Johnson, our new House Speaker. So I do have a word now. We're still talking about Peter. We're talking about Peter. Now Jesus reinstate Peter. You might remember Peter had repented, and he asked Jesus for forgiveness from denying him. So John chapter 21, 15 through 25. So when they had finished eating, you know, Jesus had said to Simon Peter, remember they had caught all that fish and stuff, and Jesus told him to come on in and eat. So after they had finished eating, he said, "Do you love me?" Jesus asking him this, more than that. And so Peter said, so John, he had John first. So John had said, "More than yes, Lord." He said, "You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." So it was important that Peter give a primary, love to Jesus. Now he needed to love his Lord more than other disciples and more than the flocks. So it's also important that the pastor do not love their ministry more than the Lord. Now see, we have our ministry. We can't love the ministry, first. You know, so so Peter saying we have to love the Lord first, then the ministry. You know how some people put so much into the ministry and forget about praying and connecting with God. You know, and some people be in church for 5, 10 years, still don't open the Bible. So he's saying don't put too much in all. He said put more. He said don't put the ministry more than the Lord. Because sometimes you can get so caught up in doing so much for the church and forgetting to pray or forgetting to connect with God. So Jesus had said, "Feed my sheep," mean food. It's referring to the work of the shepherd. So they are called to nurture others, care for the church, feed believers in a loss with spiritual food. So protect those in the church and go out and seek the lost sheep that are still out in the world. And see, that's what Jesus had did. And see, that's what Jesus want Peter to do. See, Jesus gonna train Peter to be that rock. You remember he denied Jesus, but now he about to be that rock. He about to be that rock that he gonna be awesome like Christ, and that's what God want him to be. Transform him to be something like Christ. We all ain't gonna be exactly like Christ, because he came in the world perfect. He came in the world, beating the devil. The devil tried to get him. He told the devil, "Get behind me." So in the church and go out and seek the lost sheep that are still out in the world. So we can try to get so many saved, but they still have so many lost ones that's still out there. So again, Jesus has said, Simon, the son of John, do you love me? See, Jesus gonna do this 3 times. It's gonna be a comparison of Peter when he denied Jesus 3 times. Now this the second time. Jesus has said, do you love me? And he answered, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. And Jesus had said, take care of my sheep. See, every time he asked him that, he said, take care of my sheep. And you know what that means? Take care of his people that's going to be in that church. So he making Peter a leader. So every time he said, do you love me? He said, go take care of my sheep, meaning go take care of my people. Take care of my people in the church. So the same form of when he denied, Jesus had said to him again the second time. The question is repeated in exactly the same form of when he denied him 3 times. Except that Jesus does not compare more than he. Now, see, Jesus not comparing, but we are, you know, we see that he asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" So the third time he said to him, Simon, of John, "Do you love me?" He said, and Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." So Jesus had led Peter through experience that would remove the clouds of his denial. And see, that's how Jesus was. That's how he was. If you make a mistake, he gonna try to help you out. He gonna help you try to forget it. See, Peter denied him 3 times. So he figured he can't even stand against Jesus right now. So Jesus had to ask him 3 times, "Do you love me?" So that take away his denial. They said they would remove the clouds of his denial. So Peter had disowned Jesus 3 times. 3 times Jesus asked Peter, "If you love me." So when Peter answered yes, Jesus had told him to feed his sheep. It is one thing to say you love Jesus, but the real test is, your willingness to serve him. And Peter had repeatedly, and Jesus asked him, so Jesus kept on asking, you know, go feed my sheep. Go feed my sheep. So it's a good thing if you can love Jesus. Now Jesus want to see if you can serve for him, if you can serve and help my people. So commit his life to him. Now Peter's life was changed, when he finally realized who Jesus was. His occupation had changed from fisherman to evangelist, to identify change from regular to rock. Remember God said you're going to be a rock. Now he was forgiven by Jesus. So now, he started out as a fisherman, but now he evangelist. His identity had changed regular to a rock. Now he was forgiven by Jesus. So very truly, I tell you, when you was younger, and dress yourself, and when where you want it, go wherever you want it, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. So the church tradition, dedicate that Peter was crucified and asked to be hung upside down out of respect for Christ, similar to death. Now he visualizing this here, because now he getting close to Jesus, and knowing in his mind he had denied this man. So the church tradition dedicate that Peter was crucified in Southern Acts to be upside down. See, he didn't want to be the same way that Jesus was. You know, he wants to be upside down. You know, so Jesus has said this is dedicated um the kind of death by which Peter will glorify God. And then he said to him, follow me. You know, so now Jesus predict Peter's death. You know, Jesus had predicted Peter's death by crucifying tradition dedicated that Peter was crucified for his faith upside down. You know, so because he did not feel worthy of doing as the Lord did, despite what Peter's future held, Jesus told Peter to follow him. See, Jesus gonna equip him before he be taken, you know, up to heaven. You know, and see what it was. You know, Jesus telling Peter, you gonna have to serve and take care of my people. You know, and what he did to Jesus, he felt like he not worthy. You know, you want somebody like me who denied you, you know, he feel like he not worthy. You know, he say, just put me on the cross. Put me on the cross upside down. I'm not worthy, you know. So to take your place. To do what you're telling me to do. You know, so Peter had turned, you know, and saw that the disciples who Jesus loved, you know, was following them. You know, now this was the one who had learned back against Jesus, you know, at the supper. And they said, Lord, who is going to betray you? Now he was all in the business. Who's going to betray you? You know. And so Jesus saying, you're going to deny me. He about to flip the tables all over, you know, acting a fool, you know, talking about, who, me? Oh, no, I love you. Christ said, I ain't going to deny you. And sure enough, he did. So immediately after Jesus had delivered upon it about Peter's death, predicted by Peter's death. You know, Peter asks about John, you know, wondering if Jesus will say anything about his faith. You know, so Jesus had said something about his faith. So he wants to know if you're gonna do the same thing with John. You know, don't worry about nobody else. You know, you just worry about you. You know, so Peter had took a deal of notice of John and very likely understood that he meant by his raising up and follow Christ, you know, to sanctify his readiness for the service and suffering in the case of Christ. Now he know, by he going on this mission, he gonna suffer. He gonna go everything he trying to do for Jesus. You know, he know it gonna come with pain and suffering. You know, so excuse me. Now Jesus had answered. You know, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. And see, Jesus telling him, you're worrying about somebody else. You just worry about yourself. You know, worry about yourself and come follow me. You know, so Peter had asked Jesus how John would die. Here you go again. You know, you got to worry about yourself. Don't worry about nobody else. You know, so Jesus replies that Peter should not concern himself with that. And that is true. You know, just because Jesus predict your death, that don't mean he's supposed to predict someone else. You know, so Peter asked Jesus how John would die. You know, because of this, the rumor has spread among the believers that this disciple would not die. You know, but Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, if I, you know, want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? Now he keep asking about John. You know, he said John would not die, but Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, if I want him, you know, to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? He keep worrying about John. He got to worry about himself. So early church history reported that after John had spent several years as on an island, he returned, Ephesians, where he died as an old man, so near the end of the first century. So the early church history, he's talking about John. He want to know how John was going to die, So, okay, so John had spent several years as on an island. He was on an island. He returned to Ephesians, where he died as an old man. So he lived a full life, near the end of the first century. Now, this is a disciple who testified to these things and who wrote them down. Now, we know that his testimony is true. We know that Jesus' testimony is true. Now the disciple testified of these things, what's recorded in this chapter concerning the appearance of Christ to his disciples. Now at the sea, he particularly conversed, that he had with Peter. Now these are the testifies to be true by his very disciple John. Now Jesus returned from the dead was a testimony, was recorded as established, true. Now his witness was his disciples, to confirm that he died and returned. Now you see, Jesus came back, looking for his disciples because his disciples was a witness, that he died and he rose back on the third day, just like he said. So Jesus did many other things, as well. If every one of them was written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. Now, John had stated a purpose for writing his gospel was to show that Jesus was the Son of God. He clearly represents the evidence, for Jesus' claim. John has stated that the world itself could not contain the books giving an exact account of all the words and work of the Lord Jesus, the form of the world in the original and dedicated that all these work, was still fresh in his memory. So he was talking about it. He was talking about his testimony, and it was just like fresh memory. You know how a story can happen a long time ago, and then you talk about it, the memory is still fresh. Like it's still there. So that's what he's saying. It's still there. So we talk about Peter. Jesus reinstated Peter again. Jesus forgave Peter from denying him. So Jesus asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And Peter said, "Yes." And Peter, Jesus also had told him, "You cannot love your ministry more than the Lord." So that's what Peter also told him too. Peter also told him that. And we also talk about how Jesus had died on that cross and he rolled up on the third day. In order for this to be true, documented, everything else, it had to go according to God's plan. And so Jesus, when he came to, the first thing he had to go do is go to his disciples. So his disciples can be witness, and so it can be established and everything else. So we did talk about we do have a new house speaker, Mr. Mike Johnson, Michael Johnson. So we're gonna see how this gonna work. We're gonna see how this gonna work out. So that's all the word and news that I have for you today. Y'all have a nice day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.